Welcome back to the class, everyone. In the very near future, the third and final conquest for Taron Malicos is going to be finishing, meaning that a lot of us are going to unlock him. And while his kit does look really good, it does also look really complicated. So in this video, we're going to take apart his Omicron priorities, how to mod him, and what team comps he's going to work best in. So as we do this, you will notice on the right side of the screen here, I have an infographic specifically going through and outlining every single point that we're wanting to talk about. So if you want to spread this around so that people can have a greater idea of what to do with Taron, that would be great. And we're also going to be following it so it can function as a fun visual. So the first thing we need to talk about are the abilities for Taron Malicos. I'm just going to assume that you're going to put on all the Zetas, so that's not going to be much of a point of topic just because he already appears to be a very good character and is going to have a few different places that he can use them. That being said, there is one big difference between analyzing his Omicrons than comparing to, say, Omicrons on Starkiller or Malicos. And the reason is he is most likely going to be used under Seer leadership. We'll talk about comps later, but he's most likely going to be used here. And Seer not only has an Omicron, but she has an Omicron in the same exact game mode as Taron Malicos, and that is GAC. So her leadership is directly going to affect him and needs to be taken into consideration when you're wondering, all right, do I really want to apply 4 Omicrons to one team? And the answer is probably no. So the question becomes, which ones do we leave off? So we're going to have this comparison between Seer's leadership, Strength is Power, one of his uniques, Echo of the Fallen Order, his other unique, and then I believe it's Direwolf that is a special that has the final Omicron. So after analyzing his kit and everything, to me, it is very clear that the most important Omicron of them all is Strength and Power, his second unique. And when you understand what he's trying to do on the team, this is where it all comes together. If you don't do any of them at all, you don't do Seers, you don't do his other two, this is the one that matters the most. And there's really 2 big reasons why. Number one, he gets massive boost to his max health and 50% mastery into his kit, which is going to increase all of his useful stats. And then on top of that, and this is really where the rubber hits the road, I think, whenever any other unaligned force user uses a special ability, Malicos assists. This is what ties all of this kit together because he's a great damage dealer. We're going to go that into detail a little bit later. But the main reason is on his very first special, Vile Thrash, he is going to give himself repost for 2 turns. What is repost? Repost means that when you attack at a turn, you hit below the enemy's protection. This becomes quite a big deal when he's assisting every single time one of his 4 allies uses a special ability, because he's not just going to be hitting super hard, but he's going to be hitting underneath the protection. And there's also just a bunch of other things that happens when he is doing damage. He'll get stacking offense and stuff like that from other places in the kit. And I will just say, this isn't really relevant to the Omicrons in general, but we haven't seen him actually do damage. But from just looking at his kit, he has everything that makes a good damage dealer. He has a lot of boost to his offense. He has some boost to his critical damage. He has even, and this is the huge one for me, he has boosts to his defense penetration, not through just his own kit, but also getting defense penetration from Seer. And this starts to become a really big deal because when you tick all the boxes, you have good offense, you have good crit damage, you have good defense pen, and the modifiers on your attacks are good, you start to just really blow stuff up. Most characters or most teams out there have one limiting factor. The Qui-Gon Jinn, John, and Anakin team is a great offensive team. The only issue with it is they don't really have any defense penetration. Dark under Troopers is another good example where he's a great offensive unit. That being said, he can't really crit most of the time. So we're looking at some other examples of characters who already deal good damage. He has everything, I would even say more than they do, to be able to just absolutely wreck face and really not have anything to hold him back. You don't really have to worry that much about high defense because you have defense penetration. You don't have to worry that much about immune to crit because you have things like true damage or just really high offensive power. So going to be a very good damage dealer, meaning that attacking at a turn is going to be what seals most of his kit together. So that is the first priority for Omicron. The next Omicron priority is going to be Seer's leadership itself. And the reason for that is because she provides a lot of synergy with Malicos specifically how this works. So number one, you get all these nice bonuses up front, but I think one of the most important is the fact that they are immune to ability block. Malicos himself already has the way of doing with days, so that's not really all that important. But the ability block is, because if you can't get repost off because the ability blocked from the very beginning of the battle, then you're really in trouble. And the whole point of Malicos Omicron starts to be for naught. And then on top of that, you get more stats for whenever up until when they take a turn. And then whenever an ally dispels a buff, they recover 15% for health and protection. This dispel is going to come in handy for when we can look at Malicos' second ability. But the big reason for this is just to making sure that everyone on the team has survivability. If Malicos gets killed, he's not really doing all that much. And then on top of that, not being able to be ability blocked so that he actually can go forth and do everything that he's supposed to do. Third Omicron priority is going to be Echo of the Fallen Order. And the reason why this one kind of falls later is because while I think it's very good, and for what it's worth, I will be applying these first three. I won't be applying the special. We'll get to that in a second. But I will be applying these first three. And the reason why is this is going to be, I think, situational, whereas the first two are really core to getting the team to work and get off the ground. This one, I just don't know if there's gonna be situations where it's gonna matter, and there's gonna be situations where it doesn't. The first thing to note, this kills revives, not just from Malicos himself, but anyone on his entire team. So if Fulcrum gets a really good hit in there, if Seer gets a really good hit in from her massive damage hit, they also get to stop revives. And the reason why this is situational is because not every team has a revive. But on top of that, Malicos' kit already has it worked in so that when he defeats an enemy, it always perma-kills them. So this isn't going to be every single match where this is necessary. He has a savior mechanic worked into his kit as well. Sometimes that's the enemy's just not going to have enough damage to be able to do that in the first place, and it kind of becomes a moot point. And then he also gets more Edge of Madness and deals true damage to the enemies whenever they gain turn meter, which is pretty good overall. But again, against teams that don't really gain that much turn meter, don't rely on it, this isn't going to have all that big of an effect. So very good. I'll be applying it. But if you're really strapped for Omicrons and you don't want to apply 3 just to one team, that would be the one to also dip out on. And the last one, and I'm going to advise against this one. And I get that this looks, I get that it looks good, but it's just going to change so few battles. And at the end of the day, 4 Omicrons, I can't think of a single team where 4 Omicrons is necessary or even a good idea. Maybe 3, but 4 is just so much. So he deals additional true damage to all enemies, inflict buff immune and healing immunity. Number 1, these can be dispelled. So on that one, there's really, I don't care that much about that. And then on top of it, does he really need any more stacking critical damage and offense and to deal more true damage? And it's also on a 6-turn cooldown. He's not going to get back to it that consistently. And it just overall, this doesn't speak to his role, in my opinion. Most of his role is going to be attacking at a turn, hit under protection, getting the kills. It's not going to be, oh, he really needed the extra 20% offense that he gets once every 6 turns, or that he puts a debuff out that just immediately gets dispelled. So that is going to be Omicron order again. This strength is power first, then we want to do Seer's lead, Echo the Fallen Order, and then finally Die Whelp. Next up is going to be modding. I figured this would be a good thing to transition to because we've already talked about a lot his role in what he's going to be doing. And when you think modding, I think we should be thinking along the lines of Starkiller. There's a few reasons why we don't want him to be just too overly disgustingly fast. And that is because and ignore Night Sister Zombie being here. She's just being used as a placeholder for my mods. Number 1, Malicos himself, his main goal isn't going to be taking turns and dealing damage. It's going to be attacking at a turn and dealing damage that way. Again, he has multiple ways to really presenting days, so we don't have to worry about that. So he should be able to constantly be doing damage that way. He doesn't really need to take the turns. And furthermore, we should be focusing offense. And Seer has something built into her leadership where she doesn't really want anyone on her team. She wants her team to take turns, of course, but she doesn't want anyone on her team going first in front of everyone because of how this works, where they start to get all these stacking critical chance, critical damage, and offense until one of their allies takes a turn. So you kind of wreck that, and really for no reason. The Seer team has so many ways of saving themselves from things like ability block, daze, and stun that you don't really need to worry about going first. So don't do in my opinion, is do not do a speed set on him. In fact, don't even do a speed arrow. Offensive arrow here. So you do want an offense set, offense primary on the arrow, offense primary on the cross. The circle ideally should be health, but at the end of the day, he's the attacker. 16% more health is not going to make or break him. The reason for the health is he gets health bonuses and protection up, which is based off of health. critical damage for the triangle, just because that's the best way to get damage. And then ultimately, if we can aim for maybe 100 or 90 speed, plus speed on him, not total speed. So whatever's base speed is plus 90. So if you can try to average plus 15 to plus 20 on the secondaries will probably be good. You can see right here my arrow has 11, but if we go down to my cross, it has 27. So find a balance there with your own modding, and to see kind of where you can land. 18 would probably be good. Another 18 is probably good for what I've currently got going for him. For his second set, I really don't think it matters that much. Crit chance would actually be great. He does already have 70% crit chance at R7, which is where we're recommending him. And then he gets another 30 based off his unique, so we should be sitting at 100. It really doesn't hurt to have 110, 120 crit chance, though, especially with all the crit avoidance running around right now. So you can do a secondary crit chance on him. Health will be fine. The potency, his kit really isn't made or broken on potency either, but he does deal 1 debuff, and then he gets a bunch of bonuses for when that debuff is dispelled. Well, not a bunch, but he gets something when those debuffs are dispelled. So secondary set, health, defense, potency, crit chance, whatever. Just make sure to get offense on him, a decent amount of speed, and then some good offense secondaries to go with it. That being said, we need to work our way down to what his relic level should actually be, and I actually don't really have a slide here for that. But we're going to want him to be Relic 7 or Relic 8. And the reason why is, we've already explained it, he is the team's damage dealer that's going to be the powerhouse. And not only that, when we look at his first Omicron, or the first Omicron in priority, he gains Mastery, and Mastery is determined by how high your Relic level is. That's where the Mastery comes from in the first place. So you're really gypping yourself by, if you leave him at like a lower Relic level, like Relic 3 or Relic 5, take as much advantage of that as you can by getting him up to R7 or R8. I personally don't R8 anything that isn't a requirement, so if you're in that same boat, don't R8 him, just take him to R7 and call him a day. Or maybe if you don't really R5 anything, just take him to R5, but he should be the highest relic you have on that entire team. That being said, it's also really nice because of the savior mechanic. You don't want him to die first because he can't save anyone if he already went down, and him being tankier from being a higher relic level, then the rest of his team will also come in handy. So that was rather quick. And finally, we need to talk about his comps. So for 5v5, this is the obvious comp, and I guess you were kind of cutting things off here, but Fulgrim's this last character here. This is going to be, for all intents and purposes, the most popular comp. He wants to be in a unaligned Force user team primarily. He does get some bonuses if just the leader is, or if a few members of the team are, but ultimately, if you want to take full advantage of his kit, this is the team you kind of have to run him with. You can make some swaps here for the other characters. Like if you don't have Fulcrum, you can put in Xylo because he'll pass more turns to Kylo Ren on mass down below. You can also use Ninth Sister as another tank. I personally don't like either of those options because I think everyone here is currently already putting more into the team. Seer is obviously leadership. Crew is a fantastic tank, actually very different from Ninth Sister. He can consistently taunt because he has multiple ways of doing it, and he can do it on every single turn. Different from Ninth Sister, who only has one special that can actually make it happen. Xylo is not dealing nearly as much damage as our good friend Fulcrum here, and this team ultimately just ends up creating a lot of issues. You have to worry about Seer dealing max damage. Cal is making everyone survive way longer than they should. Crew keeps getting in the way. He also has a 2-turn stun. And then you have 2 huge damage powerhouses here that you also have to worry about. So this just makes the whole team very annoying. And again, with them being immune or just being able to dispel all the major debuffs, it becomes a very hard team to control. So that is going to be the main team that I think most people are going to focus on. If you don't have Seer or Fulcrum or Cal, but you do Conquest because of Datacrons or whatever, I really don't think he's going to be terrible with Lord Vader. However, different from CG, I don't think he is a replacement for Maul. If we remember, and this is going back again to what I think his kit is all about, assisting out of turn whenever a unaligned Force user uses a special. Maul is not only an unaligned Force user, but he also has a way to do like 7 specials right in a row. And Malicos is going to be assisting every single time. So, and you'll probably even be hitting under protection if you have repost already up and running, which actually this happens pretty, you probably don't. But still, this is a lot more damage than Maul would do otherwise. And if he wasn't already able to take out one character with those 5 hits, he definitely will now with the added boost of Taron Malicos. So he'll be a good fit on that team. And then we're not going to spend a whole lot of time with this, but I'm still really intrigued by Taron on an Inquisitor team. I realize that he does break some synergy, specifically with the Patience buff right here, that once everyone is not an Inquisitor, they lose all of that. But he does add an interesting dynamic, specifically what he is going to take away from people trying to use Trey as a counter. Because if we remember, the one reason Trey really works against the team, there's actually a few, but one of the main reasons is they get to hide under their bonus protection thing, even if they have locked healing immunity on them. Taron Malicos hits below that protection up. He doesn't care that Trey has 300, 400, 500%. He's going to hit underneath it every time. They're stuck with healing immunity from Riva. So he might have a shot to just be able to kill Trey, Annihilus, Scion, Savage, whoever, by doing what he does, because everyone here is an unaligned force user, so he gets to keep all of his kit synergy. So you really have to make a conscious decision of what your opponent usually uses against your Riva, if you even want to put her on defense. It's not the ideal comp, but I think it's worth mentioning. For 3v3, this is the main one we're going to stick with. You really do want a tank in there to prevent something stupid like Gidme just sniping out your Taron Malicos right away. I guess it's worth mentioning you can put Starkiller here because all of his comp gets to actually function because it's an entirely UFU team, but he also meets all the requirements for what he wants to do. And ultimately, if you want to see more team comps and have a more lengthy discussion about the trades of Taron Malicos' kit, when something needs to be an online force user and when it doesn't, do check out a video I made several months ago below, where we start to dive into using even more comps, utilizing things like Cat and or other units really that just have an unaligned force user sitting around there. Because when you start to look at it, there's a lot of unaligned force user leaders like CLS and Maul that most people wouldn't typically think about when we're thinking of a team for Taron Malicos. So that is going to be it for today's video. Again, Omicron priority is pretty clear. Unique lead, unique, special mods. Really want to focus high on offense and offense secondaries. Speed is kind of a secondary focus with a crit damage triangle. 5v5, this is going to be your golden comp. I guess we'll take away this image here. This is going to be your golden comp more often than not. This will probably still be pretty darn good. And then Inquisitors was worth a mention. And I think we covered everything here. Comps, relics, some mods, and all of his Omicrons. Yep, so that is going to be it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoy the infographic. And as always, stay awesome.